So we talked about culture will dictate the baseline of beliefs and behavior until there's an enlightenment that supersedes the culture. The more defiled the culture is, it kind of works its way into the church, and until the person is changed in their heart, nothing happens, and that's discipleship is a huge part of that, obviously. Number 2, in that Matthew 28 verse, make disciples, number 2, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. First application is physical act of baptism, but I want you to think a little deeper. In interpersonal leadership, discipleship is an ongoing immersing them into God. It's not just that physical act like you do in take a person and physically baptize in water. When you get discipling, the goal is to continually be immersing them, and this is what God thinks, and this is how God feels, and this is how God would look at this, and this is what God wants for you, and this is God, 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 continually immersing them into God. And number 3, teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. As a pure representation of God, teaching obedience, not to us, teaching obedience to God. They need to learn to self-discipline themselves according to what God wants. Why? Because that will convert into that person who all of a sudden shakes free. They're maturing, they're growing, all of a sudden shakes free of the need to be hanging onto your coattails all the time and following you around. They start backing off, and they can start seeing it now, and they start going, oh, and they discipline themselves and so forth. Our purpose is not to let interpersonal leadership turn codependent with us. That's a cult. Cult leaders do that. They make their people totally dependent on them by brainwashing the people that the only way you're going to get heaven or whatever the cult is doing, the only way you're going to get that is through me. We don't want to do that. Our goal is to some point have an interpersonal relationship with them. We're no longer their leader. They're no longer our follower. They've matured. Hopefully we're mature. And we relate interpersonally, supporting and helping each other. And we go on to get another one, and they go on and find someone. And the process of discipleship starts over. We don't want someone dependent on us for their whole life. That's codependent. And the only one we should be codependent with is God. We depend on Him. So teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. Just kind of remember, our job is a success if we work ourselves out of work. They get to the point they don't need to call you every day. They get to the point they don't need to ask you 500 questions. They got it. Bingo, you succeeded. That's good. Turn them loose, have a different type of relationship with them, and move on. So I'm calling this interpersonal leadership training. I haven't really told you why I'm calling it that. I've flavored it here and there, but let me directly hit it. I'm calling it that because I am intentionally trying to break the stereotypes of typical leadership training. There's stereotypes that go with typical leadership training. Leadership, we usually tend to think about teams and groups and methods and organization and procedures, and if you do it this way and get your team going and get them fired up and don't do this, and it's that kind of thing. I'm intentionally trying to say we're not trying to accomplish that. We're trying to emphasize individuals, working with individuals based on what true love is supposed to look like. That's the goal. That's why I'm calling it that, is so we don't slide over into, leaders work with individuals too, and leadership courses talk about working with individuals, but it's not based on agape love. It's based on principles and procedures, and this is what would be best for the company or for the team, and this is how you inspire them, and on and on and on. I switched the whole name up and came up with something really different to try to push that back. What does agape love look like when I relate to someone else? That's what we're trying to talk about. So, to get us think discipling and mentoring without those preconceived ideas. Interpersonal from Webster means relating to or involving relations between people. That's all it means. Two people relating. Can be right, can be wrong, but relationship is happening between people. We're trying to look at what's right. Every one of those 7 relationships are interpersonal. I mentioned that already. we're looking at it from a one-on-one perspective. And this is where the body of Christ is extremely weak. And this is where the Lord really gave me, I think, a building block that will help us look at ourselves and hopefully help us see why we need to make some changes here. The one-on-one discipleship, personal mentoring or interpersonal relationship that leads someone, mentors someone, the body of Christ is extremely weak in that. And that is the core reason I think the Lord asked me to do this, is because he's trying to take us someplace, and at Word of Life, we're weak in this. Here's the building block, and we're going to sit on this some tonight, and we'll come back at the next evening, and we'll be sitting on it some more and building on it. But I have to go slow on this, I think, to challenge us, because this is a cultural thing that has seeped into the church, just like I said before, and I will reread that in a bit. But this is a cultural thing that has seeped into the church by osmosis, and believers have mentally grabbed onto this, and we've connected it to our mandate, which is go make disciples. Here it is, and I'll make the statement, then we'll talk about it. Believers in the American church, I haven't been around the world and seen all different cultures and countries, so I'm not going to speak for them. But believers in the American church tend to think management is the same as leadership, and it will produce disciples. And it does not, and it is not the same thing. And when it doesn't produce disciples, the discipler usually blames the disciplee. Well, see, if they really wanted to get their act together, I was there for them. I mean, I told them, I'm here for you, and I'll walk this through, and blah, blah, blah. But let me say it this way. When you have failed with God, and I presume all of us have, I think I'm safe in assuming that. When you and I have failed with God, even though you and I scripturally know it wasn't God who failed us, we failed him. Right. Has the Holy Spirit ever shoved that down your throat? Well, it's you. I mean, I was here for you. And I was trying to lead you, and I was trying to teach you, but there you go, doing your own thing again. So, you messed up. He doesn't approach us from that angle. He really doesn't. That angle, that approach, which is in believers and is in the American church, I believe is the result of management mindset that has gotten into the church. Churches, church leaders, including myself, I have been taught this. For a long time, churches, church leaders, church seminars, everything have approached discipleship from a management perspective or a manager perspective. It's what I was taught. And they call it leadership. But in essence, it's not leading, it's managing. It's managerial. This comes out of the culture. It's a cultural mindset, and it's a huge blockage to discipling. And I'm going to spend some time the rest of this session, and the next session, a week and back, I'm going to spend some more time describing this and trying to help us really see it. Because we are so blind to it, we don't see we're not leading, but managing. And it's huge. It doesn't produce the same thing. It's gotten into the church. And I say it again. Culture will dictate the baseline of beliefs and behavior until there's an enlightenment that supersedes it. We need enlightenment that will supersede the management mindset. The more defiled the culture becomes, the more management mindset the culture has, the more powerless the church becomes, until there is an inner revelation that that is not normal in God's kingdom, how he operates. And he gives us what is normal. Now, individual believers can push back on that and start influencing it. Leadership is not management. And I'll show you some differences. I was doing some research on this, and in the summer I was doing quite a bit of research because I knew I was going to be teaching on leadership, and I was tapping into a lot of well-known leaders and rehearsing their stuff and pulling books off the shelf, and I ordered a number of new books, and the deeper I got into it, it just didn't sit in my spirit. It's like, no, it's not the direction we're supposed to hit this from. So he didn't make it easy for me. I thought I could grab principles, but you guys haven't read the books. I'll give them to you, and it'll be great. And he didn't want to hit it from that angle. He wanted to hit it from a different angle, and this is a huge piece of where he wants to hit it from. Leadership is not management. There's differences. Example, manager versus leader. One of the books I read, they said everyone wants to be a leader and tell others what to do and how to do it, even if it's their dog. I mean, they quoted that as, see, everybody has the desire to lead. We all want to tell someone what to do, even if it's our dog. That is not a leader, that's a manager. That's not a leadership perspective. The nutshell, and we'll develop on this, but the nutshell way to tell them apart, managers point the way or the direction to go. Here, this is what you should be doing. Leaders take them there and do it with them. Now, people can be called managers who actually are leading, not managing. But the two are very different if you look at them. Managers point the way, and this is where you should go, this is what you should be doing. Leaders will go there with them and make sure they are involved with them. Perfect example of that. Anybody remember the movie Braveheart? Okay. The way William Wallace worked with his army versus the way the British worked with theirs. William Wallace was in the horse, the first one into the battle, and his army followed him in. The British officers stood about a mile back with their little goggles looking in to see what's happening, and they never engaged in the battle. There they are, there's the enemy, we've taught you what to do, you know what to do, go get them. That's a manager. A leader is in there with them. He'll be in front of them. Let's go do it. The system or philosophy of management starts in our secondary educational level. I'm not sure it's in the primary, but I know it's in the secondary, high school level. It's in college, undergraduate, and it shows up really strong in graduate level. That's why businesses are set up with managers, not leaders. Businesses have managers, not leaders. You say, well, what's the difference? When a company hires someone, they expect the person to know what they're doing, not have to be taught. So all I have to do is point, say, there it is, go get it, do it, and they already know what to do, and they go do it. The more experience, the more valuable you are. Why? Because we're not trying to lead you, we're trying to manage you. We want you to know what you're doing well enough that we can assign the job, point the direction, here you go, we'll talk to you later in the day and see how it went for you. That's management. And there is a time for management. I'm not saying it's all evil. But when that thought comes into discipleship, that doesn't work. It doesn't work. But in society, we've been trained to come from the management perspective. Leadership expects I have to be with them, involved with them, leading them, teaching them. They're the learner, they're the pupil. I'm the one who is supposed to have something I can give to them. They expect that involvement. Management expects the skill or the knowledge to already be there, so it simply needs to be pointed or directed. Now, take that and put it into a church setting. True discipleship goes far deeper than preaching or teaching. Preaching or teaching in and of itself is management. I'm giving you information, I'm pointing the way to go. See you next week. Well, and I'm not saying it doesn't change people's lives, but I'm saying it's not discipleship. It's really not. It's not discipleship. That's why, in my perspective, this concept is very misunderstood in the church. Now, think back. Now, some of the younger ones struggle. You might have to Google it. for anybody my age and older, when I came out of high school, I had two ways I could go. I could go to college, or I could become an apprentice. And it was still two options. Now, if you go back 25, 50, depending upon what part of the country, but you go back 50 years before I graduated high school and look at that time, the greatest bulk of everybody was apprenticed. There was very few who went to college. You go back into, years previous, colleges are actually a fairly recent advent in history. For thousands of years, it was apprenticeship. That's how you learned life. Do you know what that is, apprenticeship? That's discipling. That's mentoring. That's what that is. It was on-the-job, hands-on training. Now we send them to school, read a book, hear an instructor, come out, know what you're doing, and we'll just manage that. We'll run that. That concept has invaded the church. We teach a class, we show a video, we preach a sermon, we have a study, we explain whatever the subject matter is once or twice and put it out there. Everybody got it? You got good? Now they should know how to do it, right? Go get them. You say, where does that come from? That came from society. We've picked up management mentality and lost apprenticeship or discipling mentality. We're not so familiar with that. We're really familiar with management. So now they should know how to do it. Go after it. And if they don't or they mess up, oh boy, I don't know what's wrong with them. It can't be us because we told them what to do. We told them twice. No, it's not us, it's them. Right? That's kind of the concept of society. That's because we've been influenced by the management model. We don't necessarily in society like personal hands-on anymore. Let me show you how to do this. I'll do it with you until you get it type of approach. Now go back into Bible times. A man was first considered a man at 30 years old. That's when he could get married. That's when he could, enter into adulthood, quote unquote. And up to that point, he had a number of things he needed to accomplish. One of the greatest ones was he needed to learn his trade or his career. And there was only one way to do that. That was either follow Dad and let Dad teach you, or if you were going to do a different career, you went and moved in with the uncle or whoever, and you apprenticed with them. Hands-on. And they did it with you. You did it with them until you had it. That's why, now here's a little side note. That's why in the Jewish culture, even today, those who follow that model, very few of those businesses fail. They're successful. Why? Because the person who's stepping out into business on their own and buying their house and getting married and this, that, and the other already knows how to run the business because he had to live it. So it's not like, oh man, I hope I know what I'm doing here. No, he knows what he's doing. Because if he apprenticed under somebody who was successful, he learned it all. That's leadership. That's leadership. Society has cultured us into management where we simply give the orders, give the directions, give the information. Here's the job at hand. Here's what you need to do it. And you need to do it correctly, which means do it the way we showed you or told you or you were taught at school. Now, bring it into the church. Bring it into Christianity. Which one is going to absolutely require love to make it work? Apprenticeship or management? Apprenticeship. That, in my opinion, when I saw this, I went, that's why we struggle knowing how to love the way God loves, because we are in management thinking versus apprenticeship or discipleship thinking. I mean, when you're learning for the first time, I grew up on a farm. That was an apprenticeship situation. You were way too young to get sent to college. I started mowing grass and raking when I was 10. By the time I was 11, I was running everything but the seeder in the spring and the combine. I was doing the swathing and stuff. By the time I was 12, I was running everything. I was a 6-year-old. I was running everything. You don't go to school to learn that. You were discipled into that. You were apprenticed into that. And you broke things along the way. And it took love to respond correctly. And at the time, I didn't appreciate my dad for what he was. He was a very mild-mannered, kind of a phlegmatic, if you've studied the 4 personalities, kind of the phlegmatic approach. And it's got its weaknesses. But boy, one of its strengths is you really had to rile him up to rile him up. I mean, he was very even-keeled and very much, I'll give you an example. We were in harvest time, weather's awesome, should be out there combining, the combine broke down. So we were working on it all day. It was like 5 in the afternoon, and we got it running, and I was, what was I? Freshman high school? Sophomore maybe? Dad said, take it to the field and get started. We're in a hurry. We only have a few hours left. Let's go. I'll come with the truck and da-da-da-da-da. I'm an apprentice. So it was, we bought well, at that time it was a big combine. We bought a 995 New Holland when I was a freshman in high school. So this was new combine, big combine. It was set up to have the 20-foot header, which we didn't because we were picking up from swathing, but we had a 13-foot header because all you needed is enough to have the pickup on it, which was 10 feet wide. But its auger to unload was set up for a 20-foot header. So that baby stuck out there. Apprentices don't always think everything through. I'm in a hurry. Dad said, get out there, get moving. I jump in that baby and turn it around the yard, and boom, we're headed out the driveway, and I didn't watch the auger close enough. Right out at the end, caught the highline pole, caught the electricity pole. And I heard this, pow! And I looked and I saw her go. And this feeling came up inside of me like, this isn't going to go well. Because we worked all day to get this baby rolling, and I just broke it because I'm not paying attention. Well, it's one night. Not that I wasn't. There was cars and stuff there. I drove around those. Didn't run over any of those. I was paying attention. But I'm an apprentice. I'm still learning this. And that was the first time I popped the auger. You break the mount, and then it swings back because it's supposed to swing on hydraulic mount. You broke the mount, so it swings back. But when you hit the pole, you now dented it. So now the auger won't work. So now we got to take this huge thing off the combine and fix that. I stopped. I got out. And I think Dad could tell by the look on my face. He's already in enough pain. He said, well, we won't get out today. Bring it back. I know how to fix this. Let's do it. You know, my hat's off to him because I don't think I'd have responded that well. I don't think. To disciple me in that and do it the right way, there was a lot of love involved. Because when you're working with an apprentice, they break things, they do things wrong, they mess things up. And yes, Dad had told me, you always have to watch for that auger, because remember, it's standing about 10 feet out from the end of your header. This is made for a big header. So I knew the information, but until you crack it once, now I never broke it again. But it happens. Management doesn't take a lot of love. Apprenticeship does, or discipling does, because the issues of our heart get brought up via the failures of the person we're leading. Joe, I wish I'd have known that when my kids were little. I really do. I would have handled them differently in some ways. If we want to help them and walk them through it, it's going to require love on our part. Management is more about performance. How well are you performing? Are you putting out the product? Is everything going all right? It tends to remove love from the equation, because put it in my situation, if I didn't grow up to be a farmer, but if I would have grown up to be a farmer and that would have been my aspirations, Dad wouldn't have fired me and said, well, I'm never going to let you be a farmer because you wrecked the equipment. He would have done what that research said. He would have helped me learn from my mistakes until I had enough self-control or discipline that when you get excited to head for the field, watch where you're driving. Because someday I won't be here to fix the auger or the header or whatever that you're going to ruin. You're going to have to do it. And he would have worked me through to that. Management says, well, there's one strike. Better not do it too often. We're going to find somebody to replace you. Love's not really in the equation. So discipleship takes a lot of love on our part. The mindset of management has gotten into the church, especially when we think they should already know it. Why can't they learn this? Why can't they do it? Why are they still so incapable? Why do these people still make so many mistakes? Why are they so needy? That mindset in the church is one of the major reasons, along with not really understanding what love is, that we have so little discipleship going on between people in the church. Because we're coming from a management mindset, and management expects results, not trouble. Seriously. When I was learning to drive, one morning, early, we had a little red VW Bug, and I was in basketball, so that's what I took to town. I think it was I could have been a freshman or whatever. I got my license really early because Dad realized that my hauling grain to town when I was an 8th grader without a driver's license could turn bad if I ever get caught. So I got my license. Now, here's this personal stuff, little mindset into my dad that I've really learned to appreciate. When in the fall of my 8th grade year, that fall, Dad bought a new 4-wheel drive Chevy pickup. First 4-wheel drive he ever had. 350 engine. Awesome, man. We're up to date. Fall, when I went into the 8th grade. When I graduated the 8th grade in the spring, they had gotten my driver's license for me early, and you could do that back then if you went through driver's training and this, that, and the other. The state would let children get driver's license at 14 years old. And I graduated 8th grade when I was 14. So I had my driver's license the time I graduated 8th grade. That pickup was about 6 months old. I asked Dad if I could take it to town on the last day of school as an 8th grader, because I'm graduating 8th grade. And he let me do it. Either that's a little loose upstairs, or he figured he had discipled me far enough, he'd come home in one piece. And I'm going, I don't think I'd have done that. But that apprenticeship mindset causes us to approach people in situations from a whole different situation, different perspective, different angle. The church tends to come from the management mindset because we've been trained in it. We expect someone else to take care of it for us. We're not going to do the work. We'll help manage it. The pastor should do it. The leaders should disciple other people. But the average church person's perspective is not that they need to get involved and do this. So even on the basic level, we take more of a managerial type of mentality. I give money to the church. I give advice. I tell others what they should be doing or shouldn't be doing or thinking or whatever. I'm on the board or whatever. And I expect production. I expect this thing to go the right direction, or we're just going to have to start replacing personnel. That's when the pastor gets fired. It's management kind of thinking, is what it is. There's a tremendous amount of material available that is excellent leadership material. But my frustration as a pastor is that no matter how much of those principles are presented and talked about and shown, very few people get it, not because we don't want to. But the average person in our society now interprets leadership through the glasses of management. And they are two vastly different things. The reason is our society has geared us up to see everything through the glasses of management because it's the basic reproduction means of our society. Children or young, I shouldn't call them children because when I graduated high school I was not a child. Young people coming out of high school now, the vast majority of them do not go into apprenticeships. Even for trades now, they want you to go to your trade school. We're set up so that when you come to me and I hire you, you better know what you're doing, or at least pretty much. There's very few people take the time to apprentice anybody anymore. It's not in our society. That has seeped into the church. That has seeped into the believers. It has seeped into our families. Why? Because it happened to us. We're far enough into this now. This thing happened to us, so this is the cultural norm to us. And unless there is an enlightenment or an awakening, a revelation of how this is supposed to work to us, we're going to take what we've been taught as a cultural norm, apply it to discipling, and then wonder why it doesn't work. And it won't work. Let me show you how it works with our children. Take what I'm going to tell you and apply it to 200 years ago, when apprenticeship and discipling and that realm was the predominant way things were done, versus now management is the predominant way. We send our children to school to be educated. Well, you know that's where I started here. You can start a whole lot earlier than that. I mean, Deb's an example of that. 200 years ago, we didn't go to the hospital to have a child and let someone else take care of everything. We did it ourselves. And if you were poor, you really did it by yourself. My grandmother, who had, I think, 6 or 7, this was on my mom's side, had a number of children in the house already, gave birth to a 15-pound baby in the bathroom, on the floor, during the night, alone, because Grandpa was gone earning money. It was during the hard times. And she didn't wake one child in the house. She survived. She survived. She lived to be pretty old. And she looked rough for the wear, but the wear was, again, Grandpa was gone. It was during the Depression, and they were in drought in North Dakota, and they couldn't live. So he was in Montana, I believe, working to earn money and sending it back. And a storm came, and there was a door open on the hay mound because the kids were helping haul hay. And the apprenticeship hadn't taken root real deep yet, and they left the main big door on the hay mow open where they were putting hay up in, and a storm was coming, and she went up to close that door and fell off the ladder and damaged her back. So she looked pretty rough when she got old, but she got very old. After doing that, birthing a child like that, it's like, just shoot me in the head now. I mean, and I'm not even a woman. I haven't even experienced this, and I can just imagine. It's like, just put me out of my misery, get this over with. But now we hire everything. Why do we do that? That's a management thinking. It starts right from the birth of a child. In fact, you're in management thinking before, and I'll get into some of that here as we get a little deeper. We send our children to school to be educated because it's not our job anymore. It used to be. We send them to church and Awanas to be educated in the things of God because it's not our job anymore. That's church's job. We've hired the church to do that. I give money for this. We send them to basketball camp to learn how to play basketball or soccer or football or whatever. We send them off to camps to teach them how to do that. We send them to dance class to learn how to dance. We send them to piano lessons and music classes to learn how to play piano. You know, there was a time if an instrument was available in the house, most everybody in the house knew how to play that instrument because whoever of the parents were that knew how to play it taught everybody. We don't do that anymore. We sign them up for a sport so they can learn the sport. Instead of us engaging and teaching them the sport or whatever, it's and I'm not saying any of these things, don't get me, because somebody's going to get offended and go, well, I just did that. Now you're saying I'm wrong. I'm not saying this is wrong. What I'm trying to point out is a shift in mentality. Yeah. We're shifting into a management mentality versus 200 years ago, if you were going to learn a sport, somebody better know in the relatives, because chances are you're not going to get more than 3, 4, or 5 miles away from home on any given day. And relatives usually tried to live in clumps to help each other. So if you're going to learn something, somebody in the relatives is going to have to teach you, your mom and dad's going to have to teach you, somebody's going to have to teach you. It's going to be a leadership thing. It's not going to be let's hire somebody to teach this. It's a mindset shift is what I want you to see. They get in trouble when we send them to the school counselor to get it fixed. They recommend a therapist, so we hire a therapist or send them to the pastor to hopefully somebody out there can get them back in order again. I'm serious. We're not, it's a mindset. We buy them a car for transportation, or they buy a car, they get a car, and we help them get it or whatever. And we send them to Walmart to get the oil changed, to a mechanic to get it fixed. We send them to the car wash to get it washed and vacuumed. We don't change oil with them anymore. We don't help them with something that's broken and try to figure it out. We don't wash our cars at home anymore and vacuum them out. Go to the car wash. See, it's a management mindset. We hire or delegate or subcontract, whatever word you want to use that fits for you, most everything because we've been taught to do that. You know, one of the primary reasons why we were taught to do that, it's good for the economy because it forces our money out of our hands. It's continually changing hands because we're hiring everything. It's good for the economy. It's a service economy. That's why the United States can still have a halfway decent economy when our manufacturing and a lot of these big jobs are across seas. Why? Because we hire everything. You know anybody who really cleans their own carpets anymore? Usually not. We hire it. You know anybody who fixes their own plumbing? You know? Usually not. We hire somebody. It's a management mentality. It's good for the economy. And if you're a carpet layer, it's good for you to have that mentality. You know, it's good. It's all management thinking. We send them to college to get a career. They come out, they get married. We send them to the bridal shop to get the dress and the tuxes. 200 years ago, there was no bridal shops. If you wanted a different dress, guess what? You made one yourself. Well, how did you learn to do that? Well, Mom taught you. You were an apprentice and you had learned these skills. It was a different mindset. That's all I'm trying to point out here. I'm not saying going and getting a dress at a bridal shop is wrong. I'm looking at the mindset. Everything in our culture now leans real strong to the management mindset versus the apprenticeship or the discipling mindset. They run into financial problems. They're newly married. We send them to a financial advisor or to the banker for help. They're expecting a baby. We send them to birthing classes to learn how to have a baby. Mom had you. She probably could help you with this. I mean, she made it through. You're alive. You're here. And if she's still alive, she made it through. Why doesn't she teach you how to have a baby? It's almost expected, oh, we'll go to birthing class someplace. Management mindset. They struggle raising their children. We send them to parenting classes to learn how to raise their children. They buy a house and it needs some repair. We send them to the person who is the plumber, the electrician, the carpenter, the painter. We don't go in there ourselves and help them paint their house. Well, I know a good painter. Rather than let's lead. Let's do this with them. The tendency is, you painted your own house? I'm so thankful I don't have to do that. We just hired somebody and it was over in a day and it's beautiful. See, and that is a step of success. I'm successful because I can manage my life. I don't personally have to get involved and do much anymore. That is cultural. We've been taught that's success. Now we take that and all those different examples I gave, and we think we're leading our family. No, we're actually managing it. We're not leading it. We're not personally engaged in a apprenticeship or discipling or whatever. Oh, we are in certain areas. But in the big picture of things, we're managing the family, and we've actually delegated the leadership to the school, to the coach, to the teacher, to the college, to the, you name it. They're the ones who are actually doing the leading. We've delegated it. We're managing it. Most everything in our society is built around the management model, not the leadership or apprentice model. So now stop with that and slide into the church. So when it comes time to grow people in the family of God, in the church, why do we, this just dawned on me. I need to stop getting frustrated with people who don't know how to lead. When he showed this to me, it's like, well, why would they? We've been taught in management, not leadership. And even the leadership books we get, a lot of them, if they're not skewed to management, we interpret them as management because that's what we've been taught. This is how you do life. You manage life. And then we wonder why no one in the church, or very few in the church, want to invest their time, their money, their life into leading, mentoring, discipling other people. They will manage it, but not want to personally be involved and be responsible and apprentice this person. You need to go to JP's class. He can help you out. Yeah, see, I'm discipling that person. No, you managed them. You didn't disciple them at all. You managed them. Well, you really need to go talk to Pastor Mary about that. I think she can really help you. Why didn't you give them the answer? I don't know the answer. Exactly. Because we've been taught all we need to know is where to go to manage the situation. We don't have to know. And that, Tammy, has been a frustration of mine. And this hit me in the head, and I'm going, for instance, between TBO and here, we have, we'll find out when hunting season's over and everybody comes back. It's been summer, and it usually stays pretty dry until, But when everybody comes back, we might have 240, 250 people. And yet, what do we have here? 20? I didn't count. I'm just guessing. We've got a few watching by live stream. And Tammy, it has frustrated me. How can we present such, to me, life-changing material, and the believer who should be grabbing this so they can help someone else don't care? Even this class, they don't care. They don't show up. Why? Because we've been trained in management. Somebody else will take care of it. I don't have to personally get involved. What was the class about? Because if I run into somebody who needs that, I'll send them to you. You went to the class. I'll send them to you. See, that's management thinking. That's not leadership thinking. It's definitely not, I want to disciple someone or I want to mentor someone. I want to apprentice someone. Because we're not even gathering the information it takes for our society right now to apprentice them or mentor them. Why? And Tammy, that frustrated me. It's like, what in the world am I wasting my time for? And when he showed me this, I'm going, an aha moment. It's like, aha. So now pan out to the big picture. God, the devil. Souls in the balance. God says the way we will reach this world is we will love them and disciple them. The devil says, watch me mess that plan up. I will get the church not to think discipleship, leadership, apprenticeship. I will get all of culture to think management, which doesn't work. And I will cut this thing off at its knees, and it'll go nowhere. Wow. Yeah. And it's seeped into the church. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's why Sunday nights have gone away. Wednesday nights have gone away. I read a statistic just this last week on that, how many churches still have Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night. And Sunday morning that's the mainstay service. That's the staple. Sunday night, the statistic, the percentages, in other words, it's rare. And Wednesday nights are all but dead. I mean, why? Well, I got enough. I know what I'm doing. My life's okay. Yeah, but what about helping someone else? Well, what's their need? We'll find somebody who can help them. We'll send them on. Just the way we do everything else in our life. We manage it. Yeah. Rather than getting our own hands dirty, getting involved, rolling up our sleeves, and going to work, we point the way. You know, you should go over to that church. I think they'd really meet your needs. Management. You should go to that counselor. You know, I went to him and I sent one of my friends over there, and man, they really helped us. You should go over there. See, it's all management. Why don't you sit down with them and explain to them what that counselor said, and you lead them? Well, it doesn't really even cross our mind because we've been trained in management, not in mentoring or discipleship. Culture. Our culture has dictated what it should look like. Let me stop right there. I think I gave you enough to chew on. And we'll pick it up. I still got a lot more to say in management. Because this to me was a hard pill to swallow because I've been trained in management just like you. And management has its place. I'm not saying you can never manage. Management has its place. But it is not management's place is not in discipleship. It does not work there. Management works if you're working with a bunch of people who are adult, mature, grown up spiritually. Well, then somebody says, hey, let's do this, and bang, they know how to do it, and they're going to go after it, and they're self-motivated, and they're self-disciplined, and they've got vision, and they can hear God, and boom, they grab it and they run with it. And all you have to do is kind of look in from the outside going, wow, look at them minister. Look at them fly. That works when we're all mature, but discipleship is not about mature. It's about the immature, trying to grow them up, help them get free, get overcoming, get victorious, get mature. So it's a whole different thing.